Why is it that some people know exactly what to do but struggle to execute? We all know this person. They're aware, willing, and motivated, but they can't seem to connect ideas to action. Here's the hard part. I've been that guy. And if you are here, I'm guessing that you have been or currently are as well. So if we haven't met before, my name's Kyle. I'm a former Marine machine gunner with a double master's degree in psychology and clinical mental health counseling. More importantly, I'm a husband and a father, and I know how important discipline is, not just for myself, but for the ones that I lead and love. So if you give me about 10 minutes, we'll go over 3 simple things. And by the end of this video, you'll have actionable steps to become more emotionally grounded and practically disciplined. 3 things. I'm going to show you exactly how the Marines build discipline, how it's backed up by modern science, and how you can start applying this immediately. So with that, let's jump in. At a place called Marine Corps Recruit Depot on Parris Island, South Carolina, teenagers east of the Mississippi begin to learn what Marine Corps discipline actually feels like. This is basic training, oftentimes referred to as boot camp. There are 2 very important lessons to learn about Marine Corps discipline before jumping into mechanics. I preface this because if you or I don't understand the purpose of building a personal discipline, there's no point in building one. First one, and this trips a lot of people up, Marine Corps discipline is not about you. It's not meant to serve the individual. This may sound weird, but it's very important. Discipline is drilled to serve the needs of others. For example, if you and I are in the same fire team, and I allow my conduct to get sloppy, that could get you hurt, and that's unacceptable. The camaraderie that people associate with the military comes from a place of you have my back and I have yours. Fundamentally, that comes from a place of relationship and love, and that's the foundation of discipline, not selfish goals and pursuits. Second thing we gotta understand, discipline is built in the context of a mission, or in civilian life, a goal. Marine Corps discipline may feel general, and there are certainly times where it's just military rigidity, but a majority of military discipline is in the context of a goal. My brother's actually an officer in the Army, and he gave me a book one time that outlines this simply in the title, The Mission, the Men, and Me by Pete Blaber. That's your leadership hierarchy. Also, side note, that book is a great read. I highly recommend it if you are in any leadership position at all, such as leading a family, especially if you're leading a family. So the mission, the men, and me, that's your leadership hierarchy. Well, guess what? That's also your discipline hierarchy. You, the individual, comes last, because a majority of what discipline is sacrificing what you want or need for something bigger than yourself. Physical training is a great example of this. In basic training, you wake up at 03:45 almost every day for PT. It's been a minute since I was there, but the general cadence of the morning is something like this. Wake up, get yelled at, get ready for morning inspection, hygiene, get your stuff on, and then get outside for morning PT. So notice 2 things. Here's the first one. There are several small points of discipline that lead up to the big thing, such as waking up early, inspections, getting your stuff ready. So point number 1 is that small disciplines feed the larger discipline. The second thing about physical training is the training itself. Marines don't go on 5-mile runs before the sun wakes up to be in beauty pageants. We train to be in shape because being in shape is fundamental to military operations. So here again we see this principle. Discipline is not about you, it serves the goal. Now the mechanics. When you take those 2 things, selflessness and a mission, now you have a strong why and a behavioral pipeline to execute. That's the magic. Try not to look much further because you'll probably overcomplicate it. So now your job is to figure out who are you trying to serve and what is the most effective pathway to serve them. For example, after I got out of the military, I would still continue to wake up at about 04, work out, and then get to work for my 7 o'clock shift. The night before, I would meal prep, get my workout stuff ready, and then set my stuff aside so the morning was smooth. It sounds disciplined, right? But if you pick it apart, you just find the same fundamentals. I serve my family, so to get to work, to provide, I need to wake up early. To be an active father, I needed to stay in shape, so I'd train every morning to model health and ownership for my kids. So, how is all of this backed by modern science? Well, it's actually pretty simple when we think about it like this. Discipline and habits have a lot in common, and there's a ton of research on habit development and how behavior evolves over time. In the last few decades, a lot of clinical emphasis has been placed on this thing called neuroplasticity, which is just a fancy way of saying how our brain changes in the context of our experiences. For example, my brain changed a lot during basic training. I was introduced to new structures, new norms, and new behavior patterns. Neuroplasticity is why those habits stuck with me and fused into my identity after I graduated. Here's a quote from my book, Rewired. We have about 86 billion neurons between the ears, and the more they interact with one another, the more entrenched a particular neural circuit becomes. The more established that neural circuit becomes, the more it influences you. Repetition leads to habit change, not thinking about repetition. Why some of us feel stuck, myself at times included, is because we get caught in a thought loop. We want to imagine ourselves as a dialed-in, disciplined person. Then life gets in the way, we don't execute, and we relapse back into old habits. Stitch a few of these experiences together and it damages our self-image, our belief that we're even capable. But when I see this as a counselor, I immediately know that it's not that the person isn't capable, it's that they didn't find the right person to serve or the right avenue to serve them. That lack of clarity is one of the biggest barriers I see with my clinical clients. I share this because I want to normalize something. When you become something new, you think and feel things that are new. By default, our brains don't like new or change, which means by default, establishing a discipline is inherently uncomfortable. That means our first step is to gain clarity, stack some early wins, and then endure the discomfort associated with change. Now for the fun part, how do you actually execute on this? I love talking about personal tactics. It's one of my favorite subjects. It's also why I host a live 5 a.m. accountability call every weekday in my community. It's not because I enjoy waking up early, it's because I think you gotta be a little tapped to build something meaningful. And I enjoy hanging out with others who may or may not have a few screws loose. How well you execute on this comes down to two things: clarity and preparation. Here's an example. This is a screenshot of my daily morning message to my community Rewired. It's my order of the day, it's the same structure every day, no deviations. The clarity comes from what we talked about earlier. Who are you trying to serve? That question feels conceptual, but it actually lends itself to some pretty practical thinking. Those people I serve, when do they need me? In what capacity do they need me? What are the barriers that would prevent me from effectively serving them? While these questions may feel conceptual, they're actually your blueprint for building a foundation for your day. Because remember, we want to build and organize our discipline around the people we serve. Now for the preparation part, this is all about reducing friction, especially in the early stages. For the sake of conversation, let's stick with waking up early. That's a hard one that a lot of guys want to work on. And this is why it's hard, because if you're not waking up early, you can't complain later on that you don't have enough time. At least there are times where that's what I told myself, and it sucks because it takes away your ability to complain and make excuses. For that reason, that's exactly why we need to lean in and make it happen. So how do we wake up early? Well, waking up early actually starts the night before. Are you preparing your gear and staging your stuff for the morning? Do you have an outline for how the flow of the morning should go? On the very practical side, do you have one or several alarms locked and loaded? Here's the tricky part. Even if you do all of those things, you're still going to want to stay under the covers because it's still going to suck. Here's the point. Discipline is supposed to drag you out of your comfort zone. That's why it's worth building in the first place. So let's close this out. Usually we know what to do. Knowledge is not the problem. Executing is the problem. Because of that, I want you to try something. It takes 2 seconds. Write down one aspect of your discipline that you would like to improve and one practical barrier that you expect to get in the way. As a counselor, here are some of the biggest barriers I see. Time constraints. People saying they don't have enough time or that they're always rushed. Coming back to the waking up early thing. Not enough clarity around the end goal. Guys feeling unaware of where they want to go, which leads to drifting in this constant cycle of stopping and starting. Guys bogged down by financial pressure, relationship stress, building their family. So much external stress that thinking about themselves doesn't get any oxygen. I encourage you to write things down because when you write things down, you detach and see it from a different perspective. When I do this, it helps me organize my problems and I become a better problem solver. Think about that for a second. This strategy doesn't solve the problem, but it positions you to solve the problem. So write down one aspect of your discipline you would like to improve, one anticipated barrier, and what you can do to address that barrier. Remember, discipline comes from a place of clarity, so get clear on who you want to serve and the best avenue to serve them. If building your discipline and becoming emotionally grounded is something you're taking seriously, also feel free to check out my free guide linked below, 7 Days to Emotional Clarity. Who you want to serve, the best avenue to serve them, and start today.